7 o'clock. Meeting is being recorded and televised. Is anyone in the audience recording? Okay.
Don't think that. There's only one person there.
Let me get going.
I don't have somebody. Yeah, you do.
Adam,
Yes?
how did you plan to start? How do the board members want to do this? You want to go through it line by line?
I don't
Read
think
it.
that's
Well, we're just
necessary.
gonna go
read
fight
it.
for the corrections,
I just
right?
look
For
at
the adjustments?
No.
That was my hope. I tracked the changes so everybody could follow them, and we
Just
could
do
just
the changes.
go through and,
We don't
and
have to
highlight
do
what
it
was
midnight.
changed, since we had a pretty thorough discussion of them at the last meeting.
I did not read through this. So where are they highlighted at?
So
They'll be-
you can
Oh,
see.
this right here with the sideline?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Everybody ready? Okay, on page 1, I don't see anything.
First change is page 5.
Okay, let's go.
I had a conversation with a board member about fees and the equity of fees across the whole project. Individually, each of our fees are comparable to what other communities charge for those things. We are looking to charge for all of the things where some other communities don't charge for some of them. So in an effort to be a little bit more fair, I know that that Wendy had talked about maybe incrementally raising fees. What I think, or what I proposed, is removing the minimums on the preliminary and the definitive plans. So it would be just the 500 and the 50 per lot for the preliminary, and the 200, the 1,000 and the 200 per lot for the definitive. And
On
with
B.
that, correct, for B and C, for 222 B and C. And then under waivers, which is 2231, instead of charging for each waiver, charging just for the waiver request, because processing them, I think, probably would work out about the same. So it's really we're incurring cost by processing these, but not being punitive about the cost to the applicant. The other thing in that section would be on page 7, lot releases rather than per lot, doing them per request. So each time someone requests them, whether they request 1 or 10 or all of their lots, it's a one-time fee.
$250
Yeah.
Per lot.
No,
No,
per request.
Request.
So what that does is,
4 lots released to get.
Right.
you know,
$250 for
and
lots, right.
we can look at the one that we've recently done. Deer Trek. They came in and asked for 1 lot because they wanted to put up a model, or what I thought was a model. They actually have a buyer for the house. So rather than him coming back every couple of months and saying, can I have another lot? Can I have another lot? And sort of wasting our time and forcing us to do that one by one, we'll be paid back for the effort that we put into that as staff, but it will also make people be a little bit more thoughtful about the way that they request lots. And in most cases, I think what you'll see is people will go from covenant to requesting all the lots at once and putting up a bond and then reducing the bond as they go along, or cash, or whatever form of surety they choose to use that's not covenant.
Now, are you, what about the proposal to increase them, a little bit?
I sort of
little
backed
bit,
off.
or-
I didn't really look
wanna
at
go
that.
with that?
Yeah, I was hoping to go with the singular, mostly because raising them incrementally means doing the public hearing process again. And not that I'm necessarily opposed to that, but it's a matter of remembering that it's time to raise fees, and probably doing another fee study annually just to make sure that other people aren't raising it. I think what we're looking at as far as the price point is fairly equivalent, and I think that taking out some of these minimums and some of the multipliers brings us more into an acceptable line.
Okay.
If you still want to look at incremental, I don't think that that's something that,
Well, maybe not, maybe not next year, but certainly, revisit, like you said, as long as you're keeping an eye on what's going on
Yeah.
in neighboring communities.
and I would say that probably what we would want to look at is maybe every 3 years, do a survey and just see where things are, because real estate cycles tend to happen.
What percentage, as it stands now with the correction that you made on this, what percentage have you increased it over what was there before?
It was $100 and $10 per lot.
Yeah, this is a substantial increase. So
Yes.
I had talked with Adam, and my concern was being that with all the work the town is doing to try to become more development friendly and really encourage development across the board, I didn't want us to make a decision that increased the fees to a point where we were no longer cost competitive with our neighbors. This proposal, even as revised, is still a substantial increase from where we've been. I broke it out based on a sample 5-lot and 20-lot subdivision, and a 5-lot under our current fees would be $4,100. A 20-lot would be about $6,500. When you under the proposed fees, it'd be about $10,000 and $17,000. So it is a substantial increase. And when Adams was noting that,
it's got to be 50%, 100% plus.
right. So when Adam was noting that these fees, he's right, but as he said, not all towns incorporate all of the different fees that we charge. So I just wanted to kind of have the board be cognizant of that and recognize that this is a substantial increase, and we should analyze what impact that'll have on development. Some of this, certainly, the town, we don't want to be putting the burden of the administrative costs for development on the taxpayers, but we also want to make sure that we're cost competitive. So I think the changes he's made are good. I'd be in favor of smaller, even smaller fees, reduced fees from that. But I kind of wanted to have the board.
So from what we talked about originally, we have the original prices on all these different things, and it looks like based on this, the analysis you just did, the comparison, that one went from, there was 41 and 66 or something like that, and went up to 10 and 17.
Yeah. Now that includes peer reviews, estimated fees for the peer reviews.
It's like 130 or 40%.
Yeah.
But it's not, because if you take the peer review is going to be the same cost under the old fees or under the current fees.
Right.
So the peer review cost comes right off the top of both of those reviews, or both of those proposals. So it's, and I'm not saying it's not substantial, but it's probably closer to a 65 to 75% as opposed to 130%.
Well, I kept those costs consistent in the pre and post numbers, so it
Correct.
But
And it would stay consistent, but I think that the end numbers don't necessarily bear out.
Would it be something that we say from wherever they were originally before we came here, that instead of going up to 70% or whatever we did, that we go up 30% each year, or a third,
Well,
and
that's
a
why I
third?
said I thought an
But the
incremental would be
incremental that you talked
a
about.
better option.
Yeah, I'm
However,
for that,
when
too.
was the last time they were increased? 80s, you said?
We did them a couple of years ago. We talked about it,
We
what, in
talked about
2010?
them. We
Talked
talked
about
about them, but
increase,
they were
yeah.
never done.
No, because the
Right.
increments
So,
were so high.
realistically, when was the last increase?
The last approval of rules and regs upgrades was 10 years ago. I don't know that there were fee increases at that time. I don't know if Mr. Carpenter, who was on
We
the
never
board at
did a
that
lot
time, was
with
aware
raising fees.
of whether or not they raised fees. I know Mr. Brooks was on the board at the same time.
There hasn't been a fee increase.
And
I
I
think
think
25%.
that, that's probably,
Yeah.
25%.
I mean, it's probably
If they want to go up another 25%.
and do it, yeah.
That's right. But
Right,
more than
try
that,
to play
it's
catch
not,
up.
more than
Yeah.
that's not palatable.
That's why I said the incremental is likely the best.
That's my
you know.
opinion. Needless to say, it's up to you guys. What do you
well, and it's up to the board how they want to do it. I think that an increase of 25% does little, if anything, to continue to recoup the cost of what the taxpayers are currently subsidizing for
So you're
development.
suggesting that
Why don't
we
we go
take maybe a bigger
33,
bite this
33?
first time and then
Or do 50%
smaller
and then
bites,
two
or-
25s or
Right,
something like that.
right.
Well,
I
but-
don't want to mislead you guys either. I mean, some of the changes that Adams made have already reduced this cost. So, for instance, in what I was carrying, I was assuming after talking with Adam about 5 waivers or 2 waivers, I think, being average, which is probably more. So I think the change in having it just be $500 for a waiver, regardless of how many, is a substantial cost or a substantial decrease, which
Decrease in
reduces
cost.
that. The lot releases is another big change, and reducing the minimum kind of reduces the hardship on a 3-lot or 5-lot subdivision. So I think what he's proposing here is okay. I might suggest on some of the bigger items, maybe reducing the initial piece a little bit, or having it on a per lot basis. You know, shifting it from that initial
Shifting it
fee
from a filing
lot
fee to a
fee.
per lot fee.
Yeah.
And I think that that's reasonable. My concern about raising 25% or even 50% is it would take nearly a decade doing that to get to the point where we're ending subsidies from the taxpayers on development. And my feeling is the cost of development should be borne by the person proposing the development. The final costs of these, I think John did a quick calculation, and on a 5-lot subdivision, it was $6,000 or so for the development, for the permitting costs for the subdivision. That's probably about 5% of the engineering cost on a development of that size with a roadway. So in the scheme of doing development, 5% for permitting, I don't think is out of the box, and I don't think that it's out of control, and I don't think it's unpalatable or shocking.
Excessive.
We're in a place where people come in, they see it, and they go, "Really? That's all I have to pay?" It's embarrassing sometimes when some of these developers come in and ask how much it costs to do a subdivision, to say, give me $120, and they're like, "Really?" It barely covers the first half of the first review.
It's going up by 25% every year or so. How do you figure it's gonna take 10 years?
Because if we went up 25% on a preliminary plan, okay, actually, I'm sorry, because that is definitive. It's $100 and $10 per lot for a definitive plan now. So if you went up 25%, that's $125 and $12.50 per lot. To get to the fees that are in here,
Yeah.
it's
That's what it is, to get to the fees
a
that he's
long-term
proposing.
project.
Right, right.
I'd
And
be
that
good with
means-
just doing it 50% this year and 50% next year. And letting it be.
Well, the 25% the second year would be 25% on the already raised figure.
Okay, so 25% of $125 is, let's say, $30 even. So that puts you at $155. So
Well, I think, would you guys be saying you do 50% of the increase that's shown?
I was
here,
gonna say, you're
rather
talking
than
about cutting these
Proposed
in.
increase,
No,
that he-
50%.
whatever
Yeah.
he had in the draft that we looked at and reviewed at the
Right.
last meeting.
To get to that
That
place.
thing,
Okay,
right?
so you're
We're
saying-
not-
To
we're not
that
talking
figure.
25% on
So you're
on
saying
what we
looking
got.
at
25, if whatever it was, if it was 1,000 for something, let's make it 500, and the next year raise it the other 500.
That's
to the
right.
fee.
Get it up.
So we're not having to do it.
That's
now.
fine.
Right, yeah, that makes sense.
That's okay.
Everybody okay with that?
Yep.
You know,
What you doing with my pen?
Are you all right with it, John?
So you're saying 25% or 50%?
No,
this year?
50%.
Okay, all right.
Whatever was proposed in the meeting prior
Yep.
to this.
Um,
that-
50% and
But
then
I would say
50% next
with-
year.
Across the board,
I
or
would say
just
with
for
that-
It's all
filing fees?
across the board, so it's even roughly.
I
plus or
understand.
minus $5
I want to
increments.
understand what the
$5
consensus
$5
is.
increments.
And I would just say that with Adam's changes, which I
Yeah,
think
with
are
the
good.
changes,
With
right.
the changes he made
Changes.
for
If you
this
were
meeting.
raising something from 300 to
So
1,000.
50% of what was proposed for this meeting.
Right.
Yeah.
If you were
Oh,
raising
yeah.
something from 300 to 1,000, a $700 change, just raise it 350.
Another
Okay, and then the
350.
next 350 will automatically go into place. We can vote
You
on it.
can't do it
at the next-
automatically.
We'll have another
Okay.
meeting on it
Well,
next week,
So
Vote
next
on it
year.
Next year.
2014.
Sure.
Everybody in agreement?
Yes.
We're gonna go through everything and then we'll do a vote on the whole regs. We don't have to
The
go on-
only
we have to
thing-
go on-
wait,
Is there anything we're
hold
gonna
on.
do separately?
I am not. I'm not going to half the advertising cost because that's an actual cost number.
Okay.
Advertising is exempt from that.
As is or whatever it is.
All right.
Next change is on page 9.
And that's the inclusion of a PDF file for the
Yep.
approval not required plans. That'll be the distribution method,
Yep. Perfect.
which is simple and something we required on other things. Yep, 153255 is the language on submission 2 weeks prior. With preliminaries, it's a little less necessary, but it's in there anyway. 328 towards the bottom of the page is language about the applicant or representative being allowed to join on the site walk. Page 16, 3311, letter A is just language clarification on the requirement for drawings. We don't take reproducibles for the original submission because printing on Mylar is expensive and it really only makes sense to print it once it's been approved.
17, 18, 19.
21 is again the applicant. There's, oh, I'm
There's
sorry.
one on
Actually,
20.
that's just a formatting. That's just moving tabs and making things line up and look pretty. Letter E on page 21 is just a language clarification about perimeter drains being independent from the street drainage.
Yep.
At 334, again, applicant language in the site walk description.
25 is next.
Yep. That is the FDIC language, and it's saying that the planning board will only accept agreements with lenders that meet the FDIC definition of a bank. They have a very specific definition and requiring that they are insured by the FDIC.
26.
Or maybe the credit union, there's another thing, the credit union bureau is insured. Like credit unions aren't insured by the FDIC, but they are insured by another governmental agency or insurance.
So would you prefer that it says or equivalent agency?
Yeah, or equivalent agency, yeah.
I'll send you a fresh copy.
26, Adam, there's one line at the bottom.
That is formatting.
Page. 27 is clean.
29 would be the next one, and that's formatting. It's removing tabs and realigning. 30 would be the next one. That is addressing the concerns that Wendy brought up about design and reducing traffic, reducing infrastructure needs, increasing walkability and the use of green infrastructure.
Disturbance of important wildlife habitats, outstanding.
So it would be K and L are new under the reduce, and D, E, and F are new under the increase. So it's eliminating the
Curvilinear.
encouragement for curvilinear streets and looking to increase the buildable land area, the walkability, and the use of green infrastructure. One is that's removing some returns. Then 32 is taking away the curvilinear street layout wherever possible and talking about a street layout and pattern that is in concert with the scale and nature of the development, where some things would benefit from curvilinear and others would be better off with other patterns. 33, note 3 is cleaning up the language to meet current acceptable language standards. persons with disabilities. $35.
What about the minimum pavement width? What happened to that one?
That's
35.
Oh, okay, all right.
Yep. So
Okay, 20, yeah, all right.
35 is it
Change it
starts
from
with
5 to 800.
that's the cul-de-sac length. And then there's the minimum, the 6 to 4, which the number reflected, and I missed the word somehow.
24.
36 is all formats. 37 also format. Actually adding an A into revealed, and so we don't have 6-inch revels.
Yeah. There's nothing.
There's one on 42. Two on 42.
Yep, and those are both formats. 43 is all formats up until 411.1, which is having the sidewalks meet the Americans
yeah,
with
here we
Disabilities
go.
Act, the Architectural Access Board requirements, and shall include properly installed tactile and directional curb cuts. Does that meet what you were looking for?
Shall conform to all major the only thing about, is there the discussion about the total sidewalk width? Or that would just fall under the access board, they could look that up.
Yes,
Okay.
and that's
would have
why.
to be compliant with that.
Correct, and what
That
that
was a
does
better
is
way
it
to do that.
eliminates us putting in a
Absolutely,
standard,
others- Yeah.
and that way, if and when they change it, we don't have to go back and
Putting in the
say,
minutia,
yeah.
let them read the access board.
well,
guidelines
yeah, and it's,
Yep, okay.
Adam, on 39, can we discuss a strategy with the fire department and trying to determine,
yeah, the
Them
fire
come in
chief
and
is
talk
actually
to us.
gonna come on the 14th,
okay,
so there's a couple of things up in the air right now,
okay.
and I think, and please correct me if I'm wrong, I thought what we said is we would look at approving this as it is now. They have a bylaw that they're proposing as part of the general bylaw rewrite. And so what is most likely going to happen is if that passes, that will outline what the requirement would be. If that doesn't pass, then we would look at changing that section. That's probably another 8 to 10 months off before they hold the special town meeting to go over those bylaws. So he wants to come in on the 14th and sort of talk about what's in the bylaw, what he's proposing as adequate access to water, and then that would be the opportunity to ask questions, have a discussion, and
Sure.
That's 482 on 39.
yes, 4822. Be if not within the 3,000 feet of water, and then having the Board of Health and Fire Department agree on what is acceptable water standards, along with the board. And again, that'll be a discussion that he'll want to have on the 14th.
May.
Correct.
46 format.
Correct.
On 42, we had talked about requiring a fence with vinyl slats, chain link with vinyl slats.
Yes, you're right. We had.
Yes, we did. It was in the notes.
Like you said, good thing we went over.
You're my eye on 'em.
And that is, so that would be 4928. Oh wait, no, I'm sorry, that's
No, it's in
4925.
Yeah. We're just specifying.
Chain link, yes, it's taking
What-
out the wooden,
Right,
We always request the same thing anyway, so we might as well have that be the bylaw.
must be
Vinyl
chain
slats.
link.
Then it's not gray.
What's that?
Then it's not a gray area.
Yeah.
with vinyl slats. Okay,
Page 50D. I.
hold on. And that's confirmation
talk
from the
to Bill?
engineering department, yeah.
Yeah.
And the
from-
34 was an old spec, and the 40 is what the current Mass Highway specs, or the Mass DOT specs say. '54, there's a format. '56 is a deletion of a page return.
57 format?
Yeah. 57? 56?
57, yep. Must be 56.
Format on
56,
50.
you're gonna get rid of that blank page, right?
Yes.
59.
Is adding the board or its designee, which we discussed for enforcement purposes. 60 is the removal of a return. Or some returns. I think that's actually supposed to be blank, but once I accept everything, it might bump it to its own page.
Yeah, I think you're pretty good by the time you get
Looks like
there.
it.
Good job.
So, there's two ways to do it. You can accept them with the changes that you made tonight, or you can continue the hearing until the next meeting and vote the approval that evening.
I think we can accept them with the changes that we made tonight and vote on it.
Public
Is there
comment?
public?
Yeah,
Oh, not- we're not, yeah. You guys agree with that? Is there any public comment? Dick? No public comment? Do we have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
It is a vote. Thank you, Adam.
Thank you. I will make those changes and send everybody out an electronic copy. And then, when I get the minutes, I'll bring them down to the town clerk and file them with her and the registry. And then everyone will get a nice fancy bound copy with all the forms and whatnot.
Color.
There's nothing color in there.
Oh, we could put some in.
All right.
Well, we'll wait till 7:30 to start the public
That's a discussion.
so we could start it now. 7:30?
There are two petitions from citizens for road acceptances. These are all different plans, so our scanner is down. Because they're citizen petitions, there's no engineers involved, so there's no plans. Just what we've been able to piece together. They are for Rethel Street, which runs off of Oxford, and for Perry Place, which runs off of Auburn Street.
Perry comes down, what's that street, Jimmy, that takes a left towards the end, that comes back out onto,
Perry
Rockland
Place is
Road.
right before the ramp on, isn't
yeah.
it?
Right,
Right before
Highland,
the ramp on 290?
no, Highland runs perpendicular off Auburn.
Pearl Street?
I need to see it.
Pearl, yep. Okay, so that's Pearl Street, Adam? Right here? This is coming down from Auburn Street here, and then is that Pearl? There's only one left that it takes.
Maybe.
Well,
She's
I was
gonna
just
get
down there, and she confirmed it, I think it is.
okay.
Now, Adam, when it's a citizen petition, who is responsible for the roadway improvements, should it be accepted?
Once the town accepts it, it's our,
It's
our-
it's
It's
our,
ours.
it's our nut.
Okay. Rifle Street seems to be in fairly good condition. As a sidewalk, it seems on one side, not on the other. But Perry Place is in a bit of disrepair. In fact, it's dirt and needs substantial grading, and on most of it, I think so.
That's correct. What?
Rethel Street's in good shape because it connects to the arc on the rear out of it.
And
It's in great shape in comparison, but still
Correct.
in great shape.
with Rethel Street, I had a conversation with the DPW director about this. Rethel Street, they've found some evidence that at some point many years ago it most likely went through the subdivision control process, probably in the 60s-ish, maybe late 60s, maybe before, a little bit before that. With Perry Place, there's no evidence that it was ever done through the subdivision process. It just seems to be something that's always kind of existed. And that doesn't necessarily mean it's not a candidate for acceptance. It's just sort of the facts of what's happened.
If we were to accept it, it was accepted by town meeting, then the town would be responsible to bring it up to standard.
Well, yes and no. If the town were to accept it, the town would begin to receive Chapter 90 money based on the additional length of Perry Place being a public road. If there were to become a sinkhole, the town would be responsible for filling it. Currently, the town has I believe it's a bylaw that says the town can't expend more than $500 annually on a private road, but they plow it. They plow all the roads in town for public safety. There's a ton of private roads, and they will go and make emergency repairs to allow for emergency vehicles to have access. If the town were to accept it, they could choose to reconstruct it. They could also choose to leave it as it is and put it into the queue of other public roads that are slated for reconstruction sometime in the future, and it could be 2 years, it could be 20 years. I don't think there's a guarantee of reconstruction of Perry Place immediately upon the town accepting it. That's a DPW issue. I know that the DPW director and the assistant town engineer have spent considerable time over the last 2 or 3 weeks driving every road in town, assessing them, and are in the process of developing their paving program for the coming fiscal year. But I would say that Perry Place wouldn't be on the current fiscal year at all, because they would start, once the weather continues to be like it is today, they'll be out marking streets, developing quantities, and putting together a bid package. And I don't know that waiting for certification from town meeting would get them to a place where that would be included this year. Same thing with Rethel Street. It's in decent shape, so with Rethel Street, the acceptance would be almost a preventative step. It's in reasonable shape. By the town accepting it, it increases the length of public roads. It increases only minorly and only very incrementally the amount of Chapter 90 they get, but it also gives them the opportunity to perform preventative maintenance that will extend the life of the base of that road. So rather than spending, they can spend the money to grind and overlay as opposed to full pulverize and rebuild.
Did you have any kind of a recommendation from Bill?
Bill said he's not recommending one way or the other on these.
Okay.
Being that they're citizen petitions, he chooses to defer to town meeting's action.
So Perry Street looks like about 900 feet approximately that would become accepted.
Can I steal the Perry Place one? Adam?
I'm sorry?
You passed
Oh, yeah,
that.
yeah. Those are Rethel.
Oh, these are both Rethel?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Those are two separate, they're separate plans also. They show different portions of Rethel.
Let's do Rethel first.
Rethel would be approximately 1,700 feet, and it would be from Oxford Street to Vine Street.
Oxford and Vine. Vine is the one that makes that left.
Vine is the one that comes off
Up
of
to
the
the-
ramp.
Highway.
Yep.
You know, you come off of 290, you get on Vine Street and go up.
Right.
So it would be, it'd be essentially from Swanson Road around.
Accept on both of them. That's right.
So, what are you looking for from
The,
us?
well, the planning board is required as part of the Board of Selectmen's street layout hearing to provide a report on their findings of the request for acceptance. Cases like this, it's interesting. Paul Revere Way, it's an easy one to go back to because they're constructing it right now. When he finishes that subdivision, he's going to go to the selectmen and say, take this and make it a public road. And at that point, you would get the report, and the report would be, yeah, he came, he got a subdivision, we have a final closeout, we've released all of his bond, we've released all of his surety, the road is constructed to our standards, everybody's happy, we see no issue with this. With this, it's a little bit less cut and dry, because it's it's almost an opinion by the board on what their feelings on the acceptance are, or on the petition.
Ronnie, can you pass the other one over, please?
This is only part of it. Oh, that's Perry. Okay.
Right.
So I believe Perry up into that right angle is currently public.
Really?
Up to there?
No, up the top corner by,
Here.
yes.
Right
Right.
here. So all of
So,
this is
correct.
what?
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a small cul-de-sac too at the end of this road that's not shown on the plan.
Well, that may not be part of the road layout. That may be on someone's private property.
Okay.
And again, not having an engineer involved and having this be a citizen petition, there's limited information that's provided with that petition. Essentially, it's 10 or more signatures, and it goes on to the town meeting warrant.
Did you get the signatures? How did you see it?
The town clerk has them. It wouldn't have made it to this point if the town clerk had not received.
Is, any other questions by board?
No.
Is there any public comment on this?
Yes.
We need the road fixed.
It's not a
Would you
different.
state your name, please, ma'am, for
My
that?
name is Donna Dockery, and I lived down there for the past 20 years and watched that road deteriorate. And no matter how many times the highway department comes down and tries to patch it, I don't care if you don't tar down there our end, but near those condos that were built, that is unbelievable to drive over every single day. There's no way we can come out a different way.
Right.
And every person on the street signed the petition because even the town has a hard time plowing it. Because I took pictures, some of the holes are over now the town just came down and threw some stuff in there, but they were over 6 inches deep. Our cars were bottoming out. Like, I don't understand, like, why you wouldn't want to fix a road that's in need instead of take care of, like, a road that's already, like Rethel Street. I drive down that road easily. My street, if you go 5 miles an hour over, you're in trouble. And it's right in front of the condos that were built, and I don't think that was ever taken care of. I grew up in town, and when those condos were built, I don't think the road was ever put back together the way it was before. And you know, it's an awful road. There's not another road in Auburn that's like Perry Place. So whether, you know, 10 people drive down it or 100 people drive by it, it's a mess. It really is.
So, you want it accepted by the
We
town?
need it. We do.
Any
You
other
understand-
public comment?
Well, you understand what Adam said about just because it's accepted as a public road doesn't necessarily mean
Yeah, but
that
it
that
might. It
automatically it's
starts.
gonna be.
I've been there for 20 years, 23 years now, and nothing's been done with it.
Well, because the town can't do anything.
Right,
with it.
exactly.
The homeowners are responsible for the road at this point. So the town has never done anything because legally they can't do anything other than very minor repairs.
Well, he mentioned that it was a dirt road. It's not a dirt road, that was paved. The town came down and dumped like
6
14,
inches of-
16 yards of
yeah.
fill right there next to the condos, and
Right.
they tried leveling it. So that made it worse, because now we got even higher sinkholes.
Yeah, instead of like a 2-inch pothole where the tar was, they
If you
threw-
dig down there, there's asphalt under there, the
Under
town
there.
did that.
When did the town do that? Just
Last-
out of curiosity.
Right before winter,
Yeah.
they did that.
And
And every now and then they'll come down and they'll try to grade
Mhm.
it back.
What is the typical process for this? Wouldn't it be that the petitioners on that road would pay to have it upgraded?
No.
No.
There's no... The town doesn't have a policy on acceptance of private roads. We'll call them old private roads, for lack of a better term. I know that some communities do, and the DPW director and I a couple of years ago sort of kicked around some ideas that the town administrator at the time felt were not the direction he wanted to go. We looked at either a betterment
Right.
charge to people on private roads that were accepted that required upgrade, sort of like a low or no interest loan program. We looked at either that or requirements that it be upgraded, and that way the town is accepting a road that's of quality,
Yeah, I mean,
rather
I think that's how
than
it's done in most communities.
something that's going to be a problem. We got sort of pushed away from that, and the glut of private roads looking to be accepted had sort of dissipated. So I think that these petitions may reignite that thought process through the engineering department.
Do people get a tax break because of the roads and the condition that it's in?
No, there's no tax breaks anywhere.
No kidding.
No, same taxes.
Well,
But like,
I'll tell you-
we did an addition a few years ago,
The taxes went
and
up.
we had to bring sewerage down, and we approached the town to ask them if they would at least bring the sewerage down to the end. They said no, so we paid out of our pocket almost $12,000 to bring sewerage down to put on an addition to our house,
yeah.
and the town made us repave that whole end of the road.
Well, this is the way I feel about it. She's paying taxes, and so isn't everybody else in that neighborhood. I think we should accept that road and Rethel Street.
I'll
Get it
vote to
over with.
recommend that the
Town meeting.
Selectmen-
Yeah, whole town meeting.
suggest to the town meeting that they accept both roads.
I would say,
I'll agree.
it's all right with you guys?
Um,
Send it
I would
to-
also, I guess, just suggest that the town engineer revisit the
Mhm.
process for that, because I think
And I think that
There
we
are
will, because
a
it's
substantial amount of private roads in the town.
there are.
And if they were all to come through this,
And what does this mean
they
going
pay
forward?
taxes, but at some point it means that either the developer of that road or the residents didn't have to make that upgrade fee or upgrade charge to get that to becoming a conforming road, which would be accepted by the town. So, in this case, I'm fine certainly with approving both of them, but I think the town should foresee that private road problem that's out there and try to put a policy in place that protects the
But we're
town
not
from
gonna
having to
allow
upgrade
any
all
more
those
to become
roads,
other than a
so-
subdivision that the guy never
Yeah.
lives up to.
This
but
is
we're
on
gonna
an
have enough
individual
bonds.
basis, and I agree with you.
Yeah.
I agree with you, but, you know, on an individual, as long as we can do these on an individual basis, okay? We can approve or disapprove as we see fit.
Yeah.
I just think that in this particular case with these two roads deserve to be accepted by the town. The next two that come in here might be off the wall,
Yeah.
you know?
Well, what I'll say, sort of to John's point, is I know that when the DPW director was hired, before the DPW existed, when he was town engineer, he did an analysis of what the town gets for Chapter 90, the amount of public roads that we have. There's 87 miles of public road in the town of Auburn. We receive approximately $600,000 annually from the state for Chapter 90. It was going to take him 50 years to go through from first mile to last mile and maintain those roads in the manner that's required. So I think, to your point, that adding roads increases that length of time. The town has been generous with the DPW in approving additional funding for roadway improvement, so that 50-year cycle has probably shrunk to about a 30-year cycle, which is getting closer to serviceable life of roads. But as we increase roads, we do increase Chapter 90, but I don't think in a manner that does it. So I agree, it is a case-to-case basis,
Well, maybe
but
so-
there is a long-term.
But there was years, okay, when absolutely nothing was done to town roads.
And I understand that,
Let
but
them just deteriorate.
But regardless of what happened in those years, if you start and you look at it, it's still 87 miles of road, and there's still only X number of dollars, and there's still a cycle.
He's done a very good job.
I agree. He's done a phenomenal job, and I think that recognizing things are on a case-by-case basis. There are times like these cases where it's appropriate to approve them, but going forward, I think that you're right. There does need to be a formal policy on what the process is and how the town can make sure that we're not incurring
Right.
additional cost.
And
Well-
you're assuring us that there is a, pavement management program that's now been implemented, and this is gonna be something that is gonna become a regular,
Correct.
whether Bill Coyle is here or not.
Yes,
a pavement management program
He's
will be
put
part
together
of.
a very thorough management of the roads.
And there's a question of why these things were never accepted when they were built. Just like
I think they were just
Yeah, well, yeah.
paths, like almost,
Yeah.
just, they went down.
Well,
I
I-
remember bringing papers down here
No, I-
But they
55
built
years ago.
condominiums down there. Who did the condominiums and
Yeah, why
what happened
wasn't
with the
there a
road?
That's when
That's
the
right
road
in the
went down.
beginning, the road goes quite a
That's
bit
the area
behind
that's
that.
Was when those condos were put in.
Yeah.
Investigate that.
The person never retired,
Yeah.
right in front
I
of
mean,
those
there were
condos.
times, like when
And
my
he got
road
away
was
with that
built, it was
20, 30 years ago.
approved
Yeah.
all the way through, and they never filed the papers in the courthouse, and so it didn't become a private street until, almost 20 years later.
Later.
All right, you gonna,
Also, I think that maybe they'll look a little different at the priority list. That some roads that are at least workable don't maybe need to be brought up on a continual basis to perfection. There seems to be that some roads are always just perfect, and then others they take whatever they might be fed or
give it.
left over.
I
So.
live on one of those roads.
Well, and I can tell you from discussions with the DPW director, some of it is a balance of ensuring
Absolutely.
that the major arterials and the roads that see the most traffic are kept in the best shape, and a road that services only homes on that road, if it's close to failure, rather than save it, they will let it fail and go in when the time is appropriate and the funds are there and do a complete rebuild, because that's, rather than spend a whole lot of money trying to save something, they'll let it go to failure and then rebuild it, because that's the more appropriate way to handle the road.
So, any other public comment? We looking for a vote of this board?
So, well, you're
or a
recommending-
recommendation?
We're looking for recommendations to the Board of Selectmen on the layout of Rethel and Perry Place.
To accept the layout of Rethel and Perry Place.
Well, it's a report. So you're reporting to the Board of Selectmen on your feelings on the layout of the roads. once the roads are laid out, then town meeting is ultimately making the decision.
Okay, do we have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Two motions, one for Rethel, one for Perry, so that I can.
Okay,
Yeah, okay.
let's do
Do
Rethel
Rethel
Street
first.
first. Do we have a motion on Rethel Street?
I make that motion.
Second, Jimmy?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Do we have a motion on Perry Place?
I'll make that.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
It is a vote on both. Signatures, Adam?
No. Is that on there?
Yep. New business?
I do have one quick item. Apparently, the clerk failed to notice the meeting of the 23rd for some applications. So the meeting of the 23rd will be held on the 30th. So it'll be 1 week later.
The meeting?
The meeting that was supposed to be for the 23rd, 2 weeks from tonight, which would be our normal fourth Tuesday meeting.
The one I just saw that we were having on Monday. Where did I see that? Or was I reading something else?
I don't know. But
Oh, you know, I know what it was.
we have two applications, and in some manner she failed to advertise them within the adequate time period. So in order to not inconvenience the applicants by an additional 3 weeks of waiting, I made the administrative decision to bump the meeting to the 30th. If for some reason there's a problem with getting a full contingent of board members, we can work on addressing that, but
I don't have a problem with that. Do you?
I'm good.
You? Okay.
No, not as long as we get notification. Send the.
yeah, and I have your packets in my office. If you want to wait a second after we wrap this up, I'll give you all the materials and you can start thumbing through them. Two fairly large and beneficial projects.
And business minutes of March 26th.
Motion to approve?
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I wasn't here, so I'm not going.
Okay. Correspondence, Adam?
No, sir.
We have a motion to adjourn? Second?
Oh,
for
wait.
that?
I think.
Oh,
We didn't close the public hearing on the subdivision.
Oh, you're right. They didn't.
I was gonna say it quietly, but you put it so quickly.
So you may want to close that public
okay,
hearing.
do we have a motion to close the public hearing on
this
subdivision reg?
You do as well.
Second?
Second.
Jonathan, second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, I'll be right back with presents for everybody.
So you'll email that to me?
Yeah, I'll email you a clean copy since I made my notes on it.
Okay. Again?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
The vote?